Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that ignites passion, sparks debate, and defines the future of entire generations: money in sports. Money. It's not just paper. It's energy. It's leverage. It's a tool that magnifies who you already are. And in sports, money is not just about contracts, sponsorships, or ticket sales. It's about possibility. It's about the power to transform a kid with a dream into a legend with a platform. Think about this. Every jersey sold, every stadium filled, every broadcast deal signed is not just a transaction. It's a transfer of belief. It's the audience saying, we value this, we believe in this, we're willing to put our hard-earned dollars behind this. That belief creates billion-dollar industries, but more importantly, it creates opportunity. Now here's the truth. Money in sports isn't the enemy. It's not the villain. The problem is how we view it. Some see money as corruption, others see it as freedom. But in reality, money simply reveals character. Give an athlete $100 million and you'll see who they really are. For some, it becomes arrogance. For others, it becomes legacy, scholarships, foundations, community programs, inspiration for the next generation. Money in sports is a reflection of value, the value of discipline, the value of entertainment, the value of inspiration. Why do millions pay to watch someone step onto a field, a court, a ring? Because that athlete represents something we crave in ourselves: courage, resilience, mastery, the pursuit of greatness. We're not just paying to watch a game. We're paying to witness possibility in motion. But let me challenge you. What if money in sports is also a mirror for society? The massive salaries, the billion-dollar TV rights, these numbers don't just exist because someone wrote a check. They exist because people chose to pay. They voted with their wallets. That means money in sports is not just about athletes. It's about us, our priorities, our passions, our desire for heroes and stories. Here's the bigger picture. Money, when directed with intention, elevates everything. It builds world-class stadiums, funds cutting-edge training, fuels global competitions that unite countries across language and culture. That's not greed. That's growth. That's expansion. That's human potential exploding onto the world stage. But let's be clear, money doesn't guarantee fulfillment. History is full of athletes who had it all on paper, but lost themselves in the process. Why? Because without purpose, money becomes noise. Without vision, money becomes destruction. But with purpose, with vision, money becomes the amplifier of greatness. So the real conversation isn't, was there too much money in sports? The real question is, what are we doing with it? Are we using it to elevate the human spirit, to inspire the next generation to push the boundaries of what's possible? Or are we wasting it on ego and excess? Money in sports should be fuel for inspiration, fuel for community, fuel for human excellence. Because when an athlete breaks a record, when a team defies the odds, when a country stands together behind its champions, we're reminded that greatness is contagious. And money invested the right way spreads that greatness further than ever before. So I leave you with this: money in sports is not about numbers. It's about impact. It's about what we choose to build with the resources we create. And if we choose wisely, the billions in sports can become something far greater than wealth. It can become a legacy of transformation, empowerment, and possibility for generations to come. Money in sports is not the enemy. It's a mirror that reveals character and magnifies values. When we look at the flow of money in the world of athletics, in stadiums filled with thousands of fans, in sponsorships worth millions, in the contracts that make headlines, what we are really looking at is not just figures on a page, but reflections of who we are and what we stand for. Money doesn't create character, it exposes it. It magnifies the qualities already present within people. If an athlete is humble, disciplined, and committed to growth, money will expand those qualities, providing the resources to serve more people, inspire communities, and create legacies that outlive careers. If an athlete is reckless, driven by ego, or unprepared for the responsibility that comes with influence, money becomes the accelerant of downfall, exposing weaknesses for the whole world to see. In this way, money in sports acts as a mirror held up to individuals and to society itself, showing us the values we celebrate and the choices we prioritize. Think about how the world reacts when a rising star earns their first major contract. Some celebrate their dedication, their hard work, their journey from nothing to something extraordinary. Others criticize the excess, questioning why someone who plays a game should earn so much while teachers, doctors, and other essential workers earn less. But the truth is that money follows value as society defines it. It's not about fairness in the traditional sense. It's about the value we collectively place on performance, entertainment, and inspiration. And because millions of people invest their time, their passion, and their dollars into sports, the athletes become vessels of that value. The money magnifies what the audience already believes, that sports matter, that excellence matters, that pushing the limits of human potential matters. The mirror is not just on the athlete, it is on the culture that funds them. When money enters the equation, it does not change the fundamentals of competition. Athletes still train in the early morning. They still sacrifice comfort. They still endure pain and setbacks. Money doesn't replace discipline, it highlights it. It reveals whether discipline can survive abundance. The mirror of money shows us who can stay hungry even when their bank accounts are full, who can still fight as though they have nothing to lose, who can hold on to the values that got them to the top. The audience often admires not just the victories, but the resilience of those who succeed despite already having every material advantage. Because deep down we know money is not the driver, it is only the amplifier. It can amplify greatness or mediocrity, purpose or distraction. Look at the role of money in shaping legacies. Some athletes take their wealth and build schools, foundations, and opportunities for young people who were just like them. They understand that money is a tool for influence, and they use it to magnify their values of contribution and impact. Others use their fortune on short-term pleasures, surrounding themselves with enablers, losing touch with the hunger that made them great. The mirror shows both sides. The same millions that build communities can also destroy lives. This is why the presence of money does not determine destiny. It only accelerates the path chosen by character. Money in sports also reveals the values of the organizations and institutions involved. Teams that prioritize short-term profit over long-term culture often crumble under the weight of mismanagement, while teams that use financial resources to build systems, nurture talent, and create sustainable success often dominate for decades. Sponsors, broadcasters, and even fans reveal their own values by what they choose to support and where they choose to invest. Do they invest in sports that bring people together or in spectacles that glorify drama over discipline? The mirror doesn't just reflect the athlete, it reflects the entire ecosystem that surrounds them. At the core, money itself is neutral. It does not corrupt or purify on its own. It flows toward energy, toward passion, toward demand. When a stadium fills with tens of thousands of people chanting the name of their favorite team, when millions around the world tune in to watch a single game, money follows that attention. It magnifies the energy, turning it into contracts, advertisements, merchandise, and global movements. What we then see is the reflection of our collective desire for greatness, for stories of underdogs rising, for champions proving what is possible when preparation meets opportunity. Money doesn't change those desires. It simply fuels their expression on the grandest scale possible. That is why money in sports should not be viewed only through the lens of greed or excess, but as a lens of reflection. If you see waste, ego, and scandal, it is not the money that created those things. It is the people and the choices they made. If you see inspiration, generosity, and transformation, it is not the money that invented those outcomes. It is the magnification of values already held by those individuals. The mirror reveals all. Some athletes are remembered not for their statistics, but for what they gave back, for how they used their platform to elevate others. Others are remembered not for their victories, but for their failures to handle the weight of wealth and fame. In both cases, the common denominator is money acting as the mirror, amplifying the values that were already present. So when we talk about money in sports, we must understand it not as a villain or a savior, but as a reflection of character. It magnifies discipline, it magnifies ego, it magnifies generosity, it magnifies greed. It shows us who we are and what we value, both as individuals and as a society. It is not the enemy, it is the amplifier, the magnifying glass held over the fire of human ambition. And what burns brighter, ego or excellence, selfishness or contribution, depends entirely on the values being magnified. Fans create the financial power of sports by investing their belief, passion, and attention. When we strip back the billion-dollar contracts, the multi-million-dollar sponsorships, the dazzling stadiums with their screens and lights, what we are left with is the foundation of it all, the fans. Without their willingness to watch, to cheer, to buy tickets, to purchase jerseys, to tune into broadcasts, there would be no money in sports. The fans are the heartbeat, the energy source, the engine that drives the financial ecosystem of athletics. Every dollar that circulates in the industry can be traced back to the decision of an individual who said, "This matters to me, and I'm willing to invest in it." That investment might be small, a single ticket to a game, or massive, millions of households tuning into the championship. But collectively, it creates the wealth that surrounds the sports world. When we think of fans, it's easy to picture them as consumers, but they are so much more than that. They are believers. They are storytellers. They are participants in a global movement of passion and identity. A fan is not just someone who buys a jersey, they are someone who wears it with pride, attaching their identity to a team, an athlete, or a sport. This belief is not shallow, it is deep and emotional. It is the father who teaches his child about the legends of the past, the community that gathers around a television set, The stadium roaring in unison with chants that shake the ground, that passion is energy, and where energy goes, money flows. Broadcasters, sponsors, and organizations all chase that passion because it is the most powerful currency in sports. Attention is the most valuable resource of the modern age, and in sports, attention is gold. Fans give their attention freely, whether it's following games live, watching highlights, reading analysis, or engaging on social media. That attention is then monetized in countless ways: advertising slots during games, endorsements tied to athletes, digital platforms built around fan engagement. Every second a fan spends focused on their sport is a second that increases its value in the marketplace. This is why athletes are often measured not only by their performance, but by their ability to capture attention, to draw people in, to hold the spotlight. Fans give the gift of attention, and the financial power of the entire industry is a reflection of how much attention is given and where it is directed. Consider the ripple effect of a single fan's decision. One person buys a ticket, they pay for parking, they grab a drink or snack at the stadium, they post photos online, and their enthusiasm convinces someone else to attend next time. Multiply that by millions across the globe, and you begin to see the sheer financial force created not by institutions, but by individuals acting out of passion. A child who grows up idolizing a player might beg their parents for a jersey, and that jersey becomes part of the revenue stream that funds salaries, team operations, and global growth. That child grows up and introduces the next generation to the same sport, keeping the cycle alive. The financial ecosystem is built layer upon layer of passion, attention, and belief. Fans are also the reason sports transcend borders. An athlete in one country can become a global superstar because fans from different cultures and languages unite in admiration. When fans across the world tune in to watch the same game, their collective attention creates broadcasting deals worth billions. These deals are not the result of a negotiation in a boardroom. They are the result of millions of fans proving with their viewership that the sport matters to them. The financial value comes from the bottom up, not the top down. It is the people in the seats, the people at home, the people on their phones who determine how much money flows into sports. Without fans, the numbers collapse. With fans, the numbers soar. The belief of fans also transforms athletes from players into icons. Fans are the ones who elevate a simple performance into a legendary moment. They are the ones who tell and retell the stories of comebacks, rivalries, and miracles. That storytelling creates mythologies around sports, mythologies that have real economic impact. A legendary game becomes a historic DVD, a streaming highlight reel, a documentary, a memory that fuels endless merchandise. That mythology is only possible because fans believe. They breathe life into the stories, and that life has financial weight. A sport with no fans is just an exercise. A sport with fans is a cultural phenomenon backed by billions. Sponsors understand this deeply. They do not pay athletes millions because of what the athlete buys with the money. They pay because of the connection that athlete has with fans. The financial transactions in sports are simply companies buying access to the belief, passion, and attention of millions. They want to be associated with the loyalty that fans demonstrate because that loyalty translates to business results. Once again, the fans are the true power holders, even if it does not always feel that way. Their decisions to watch, to cheer, to believe dictate the flow of money in sports far more than any corporate strategy ever could. We also cannot overlook the role of community. Sports fandom is rarely an isolated experience. It is shared among friends, families, cities, and nations. That shared energy amplifies the passion of individuals, making the collective financial impact even greater. When a city rallies behind a team, the economic effect spreads into local businesses, tourism, hospitality, and beyond. The local bar fills up on game night. Hotels see an influx of visitors. Restaurants benefit from the crowds. Once again, it is the passion of fans driving financial impact across entire economies. Their collective belief creates real, tangible change that goes far beyond the sport itself. The financial power of sports is also sustained by the rituals and traditions that fans create. Tailgating before a football game, painting faces in team colors, staying up late to watch a championship in another time zone. These rituals are investments of time, energy, and money. They create culture, and culture is priceless. Yet culture is also monetizable. The traditions of fans keep them engaged, and engaged fans continue to spend, to watch, to participate. The entire structure of modern sports economics stands on the foundation of these traditions and rituals. So when we examine the massive flow of money in sports, the stadiums worth billions, the athletes with global influence, the brands spending extraordinary sums to align themselves with teams and players, it all comes back to one undeniable truth. The fans create the financial power. Their belief makes the stories worth telling. Their passion makes the games worth playing. Their attention makes the entire system valuable. Every dollar in sports is not just money. It is a symbol of belief, passion, and attention directed by millions of individuals who collectively make the industry one of the most powerful forces in the world. Money can either fuel ego and excess or become a tool for legacy, inspiration, and growth. In the world of sports, this truth is visible everywhere. For some athletes, the arrival of financial success becomes the beginning of their downfall, the moment when discipline fades, hunger disappears, and ego takes control. For others, that same financial success becomes the foundation for something far greater than themselves, a platform to inspire millions to give back, to create opportunities for those who will come after them. The money itself is neutral. It is the choices made with it that determine whether it becomes poison or power, destruction or elevation. When an athlete receives their first major contract, it is not just a paycheck, it is a test. It is a test of identity, of values, of vision. The temptation to indulge is enormous, with luxuries, parties, and distractions appearing overnight. If ego takes the wheel, money accelerates the journey towards self-destruction. The headlines are filled with stories of careers that burned out quickly, not because the talent disappeared, but because the money exposed a lack of discipline. Excessive spending, poor financial management, encourages draining resources, addictions, and reckless behavior. These are the fruits of money when fueled by ego. The athlete begins to believe the myth of invincibility, forgetting the grit, sacrifice, and resilience that brought them to greatness in the first place. What was once passion becomes entitlement. What was once drive becomes complacency. Money, in that sense, becomes the magnifying glass that burns away discipline and exposes weakness. On the other hand, there are athletes who understand that wealth is a tool. They recognize that financial success is not the finish line. It is the opening of a new chapter. These athletes use money to fuel legacy. They invest in schools, foundations, training facilities, and programs for the youth. They create businesses that provide jobs and opportunities. They leverage their wealth to build something lasting, something that will outlive their careers and carry their name forward with respect. Instead of ego, they choose vision. Instead of excess, they choose impact. For them, money is not a way to escape responsibility. It is a way to expand it. The greater the resources, the greater the obligation to serve, and they embrace the challenge with the same energy they bring to the field, the court, or the ring. The difference between ego and legacy lies in perspective. Ego is about the present. How much attention can I get today? How much can I show off right now? How can I prove I am above others? Legacy is about the future. What impact will this have when I am gone? How can I use my influence to create something meaningful? How can I inspire those who will never even meet me? When money collides with sports, it amplifies whichever perspective the athlete holds. If it is ego, the fall is inevitable. If it is legacy, the growth is unstoppable. Inspiration is another dimension of how money can be used powerfully. When fans see an athlete not only excel in their sport, but also use their wealth to make a difference, it creates a ripple effect of belief. It tells a young child growing up in poverty that success does not have to end with personal gain. It can be a vehicle for lifting others, for changing entire communities. The act of giving back, of building programs, of speaking out and funding causes inspires fans to believe that money is not inherently corrupt, but can be harnessed for good. Athletes who understand this principle become more than champions. They become role models whose influence reaches far beyond the game itself. Growth is another powerful outcome when money is used with vision. Growth not just in personal wealth, but in expanding opportunities for others. An athlete who invests in future talent helps to ensure the sport thrives for generations. An athlete who builds facilities in underprivileged areas helps young kids find an outlet for their energy, teaching them discipline and teamwork. Growth happens when money is directed toward creating possibility rather than feeding ego. The industry itself grows stronger when athletes invest back into the ecosystem rather than simply taking from it. It creates sustainability, innovation, of progress. The legacy of growth is not just measured in championships, but in lives transformed. The contrast between ego and legacy is stark when we look at the stories history remembers. Athletes consumed by ego are remembered for their scandals, their bankruptcies, their wasted potential. Their names often serve as cautionary tales, warnings of what happens when discipline crumbles under the weight of excess. Athletes driven by legacy, however, are remembered as pioneers, leaders, and visionaries. Their influence extends beyond the scoreboard, their contributions woven into the fabric of society. They are celebrated not only for their talent, but for their character, not only for what they achieved, but for what they gave. Money in sports magnifies this contrast. It provides athletes with resources and visibility few others ever experience. With that comes responsibility, whether they acknowledge it or not. Every choice, every investment, every act of generosity or excess sends a message to millions watching. The athlete becomes a living symbol of what wealth can represent, either a self-centered pursuit of indulgence or a selfless pursuit of impact. Fans see both sides, and the legacy of each athlete is shaped accordingly. The money itself does not choose, the athlete does. Organizations and teams also reflect this duality. A franchise that uses its financial power to exploit, overcharge, or prioritize profit above people becomes known for greed. A franchise that invests in communities, takes care of its players, and prioritizes long-term sustainability becomes admired far beyond its wins and losses. Just as money tests individuals, it also tests institutions. Will they use it for ego, excess, and short-term gain, or for legacy, inspiration, and growth? The reflection is always clear over time. In the end, the narrative of money in sports is always tied to choice. Choice of ego or purpose. Choice of indulgence or contribution. Choice of living for now or building for the future. The same millions that can destroy a career can also build a legacy. The same wealth that can isolate someone from reality can also connect them more deeply to humanity. The money does not decide. It only amplifies the decision that has already been made in the heart of the individual holding it. The real question is not how much money exists in sports, but how it's being used. When conversations about money in athletics come up, the focus often turns to numbers. Contracts worth hundreds of millions, broadcasting deals valued in the billions, sponsorship agreements that seem almost unreal in their size. People argue about whether athletes are overpaid, whether leagues are too commercialized, whether too much money has corrupted the purity of the game. But the more important question has nothing to do with the amount. The real measure of money in sports is not quantity but direction. How it is used, what it fuels, what it creates, what it destroys. The figure on the paycheck or the deal in the headlines tells only part of the story. The deeper truth lies in how those resources are deployed and the impact they have beyond the surface. When money flows into sports, it has the power to elevate or to exploit. It can build new stadiums, fund youth academies, provide state-of-the-art medical and training facilities, and create opportunities for athletes from every corner of the globe. It can also be used to line the pockets of a few, to inflate egos, to commercialize the sport to the point where fans feel alienated. The question of how money is used determines whether the game becomes a platform for progress or just another industry built on consumption. For athletes, teams, and institutions, the choices made with that money reveal the true values behind the curtain. A massive contract is not inherently good or bad, it is a tool. How the athlete chooses to use it defines whether the story becomes one of inspiration or one of caution. The same principle applies to organizations and governing bodies. A league that prioritizes grassroots development, that channels resources into making the game more accessible to underprivileged communities, is not just growing its business, it is ensuring the future of the sport. By contrast, a league that spends primarily on short-term profits, ignoring the next generation, risks hollowing out the foundation of the very industry it depends on. How money is used determines whether a sport thrives for decades or burns brightly for a short period before fading. Direction, not amount, defines sustainability. Fans also feel the impact of how money is used. When ticket prices soar beyond affordability, when merchandise becomes more about profit than connection, when broadcasting rights lock games behind expensive paywalls, fans feel exploited rather than valued. On the other hand, when teams invest in fan experience, in affordable access, in community outreach, fans feel included, appreciated, and inspired to give their loyalty in return. The same revenue streams that can alienate fans can also be redirected to create lifelong bonds and strengthen communities. Again, the question is not how much money comes in, but how thoughtfully it is reinvested. Athletes themselves face this test daily. A massive paycheck can become a trap of self-indulgence, leading to waste, excess, and disconnection from the hunger that once drove them. Or it can be used to create generational wealth, to provide for families, to build foundations, to fund projects that uplift others. History remembers athletes who squandered fortunes just as vividly as it remembers those who used their wealth to create impact. The dividing line is always how the money was used. Was it directed toward ego, or was it directed toward growth and contribution? The amount never decides, the allocation does. Even the culture of sports is shaped by this principle. When money is used to reward values like discipline, teamwork, and perseverance, it strengthens the culture of excellence. When it is used to glorify drama, scandal, or empty spectacle, it weakens the sport's integrity. Fans pick up on this quickly. They know when they are watching something authentic versus when they are being sold a manufactured storyline. Money is the tool that determines which side of the spectrum the culture leans toward. If used wisely, it deepens respect for the game. If misused, it erodes trust. Look at the role of sponsorship. Companies invest billions in associating their brands with athletes and teams. This money can provide opportunities for players who might never have had access to elite training. It can support tournaments and leagues that would otherwise struggle to exist. But sponsorship can also push the focus away from the game and toward pure marketing. turning athletes into billboards and competitions into commercials. The sponsorship money itself is neutral. Its impact depends entirely on whether it is directed in a way that strengthens the sport or dilutes it. Broadcasting rights provide another clear example. The influx of billions from media deals has transformed sports into global spectacles, reaching audiences in every corner of the world. This exposure has inspired generations and brought cultures together, yet in some cases, the chase for broadcasting dollars has restricted access, putting the game out of reach for fans who cannot afford premium subscriptions. Once again, the scale of money is not the issue. It is the decision of whether to prioritize reach and inclusion or exclusivity and short-term revenue. How the money is used decides whether fans feel connected or cut off. Coaches, trainers, and staff also live within the shadow of this principle. When money is used to provide them with resources, technology, and support, they are able to unlock higher levels of performance from athletes. When money is hoarded at the top and fails to trickle down, the development of talent suffers. Entire careers can be shaped by whether financial resources are distributed wisely or selfishly. Money in the right places creates ecosystems of success. Money concentrated in the wrong places creates imbalances that weaken the whole system. We cannot ignore the global impact either. Money in sports flows across borders, shaping economies, creating jobs, and influencing cultures. A major sporting event like the Olympics or the World Cup injects billions into local economies, revitalizing infrastructure and creating opportunities. But it can also drain resources, leave behind debt, and displace communities if not managed responsibly. The same global attention and money that can transform a host nation into a thriving destination can also leave scars if misused. The deciding factor, as always, is how the money is directed. Money in sports is like energy. It flows where it is channeled. It can be wasted, misdirected, and even harmful, or it can be harnessed to achieve extraordinary outcomes. The endless debates about whether there is too much money in sports miss the real point. The issue is never the total amount. It is whether that money is being used to create value, to expand opportunities, to deepen the connection between athletes and fans, to honor the integrity of the game. The answer to those questions defines whether sports become a force for unity, inspiration, and growth, or simply another industry consumed by profit at the expense of its soul. When directed with vision and purpose, money in sports becomes a catalyst for human excellence and unity. Money on its own is nothing more than numbers in a contract, figures in a bank account, or paper change in hands. But when it is channeled with intention, it transforms into something far greater. In sports, money has the unique ability to unlock potential, to fund dreams, and to bring together people from every background and culture under one shared banner of passion. The greatest moments in sporting history are often tied not only to athletic performance, but to the resources that made those performances possible. Facilities that allowed athletes to train, technology that helped them recover, coaches and mentors who were supported by financial investment. When money serves a vision larger than self-interest, it elevates the entire ecosystem of sport. Athletes themselves embody this truth. With financial backing, they gain access to world-class training environments, nutrition programs, and medical care that allow them to push the limits of human performance. These advancements mean we witness records broken, boundaries pushed, and new standards of excellence set again and again. But behind those achievements lies the strategic use of money. It is not the amount alone that creates greatness. It is how resources are deployed to maximize talent, refine discipline, and enable athletes to compete at the highest levels. Purposeful investment in people transforms raw ability into legendary achievement, and the entire world benefits from the inspiration of witnessing those breakthroughs. Sports also serve as one of the most powerful unifying forces on the planet, and money, when directed with vision, fuels that unity. International tournaments, global broadcasting, and community events that bring together millions of people are all made possible by financial investment. A World Cup, an Olympics, a championship final, these events are not simply games, they are shared experiences that cross borders, languages, and beliefs. The stadiums, the broadcast, the fan zones, the celebrations all require resources. When money is used with purpose, it creates stages where humanity gathers to celebrate competition, respect, and unity. In those moments, divisions fade, and people are reminded of what they have in common rather than what separates them. Money with vision also creates opportunities for those who might otherwise never step onto the field. Youth development programs, scholarships, community centers, and grassroots initiatives often depend on financial support. When resources are directed toward the next generation, sports become more inclusive, giving children from disadvantaged backgrounds the chance to dream and achieve. That inclusion strengthens the sport itself because It draws on a wider pool of talent and passion. Some of the greatest athletes in history came from humble beginnings, and it was purposeful financial investment in training and infrastructure that allowed them to rise. The cycle continues as those athletes, once successful, reinvest their wealth back into similar programs, inspiring the next wave of champions. At the organizational level, purposeful financial direction determines whether sports evolve with integrity or decline into exploitation. Leagues and governing bodies that use money to uphold fair play, improve safety, and expand access create systems that endure and thrive. They attract fans not only because of the quality of play, but because of the authenticity and values they represent. On the other hand, when money is directed toward greed, corruption, or short-term profit, the integrity of sport suffers. Fans notice when their passion is respected versus when it is exploited. The legacy of an organization is shaped not by how much money it generates, but by how it chooses to use it. Vision and purpose turn wealth into trust, into loyalty, into a culture that lasts. Money can also drive innovation in sports when guided by vision. Advances in performance technology, medical rehabilitation, broadcasting quality, and even fan engagement tools all emerge because of intentional investment. These innovations push the boundaries of what is possible, both for athletes and for audiences. A fan in one corner of the world can now connect in real time with millions of others, all celebrating the same moment because money was used to expand the reach of technology. An athlete can return from an injury that once ended careers because research was funded into new treatment methods. Every leap forward in performance and connection is fueled by resources that were channeled not randomly, but with a clear vision to improve the sport and the experience around it. The influence of money in sports extends beyond the arena as well. When athletes, teams, and organizations use their financial power with purpose, they create ripple effects in society. Foundations addressing poverty, education, health, and social justice are often funded by sports figures who chose to direct their wealth toward impact. Stadiums are built not just as monuments to competition, but as hubs for community events, concerts, and cultural gatherings that strengthen bonds within cities. Sponsorship dollars, when guided by values, align companies with causes that matter, amplifying awareness and creating positive change. Sports, when fueled by purposeful money, become a platform for transformation not just in games, but in the wider world. There is also a psychological effect to consider. Fans are inspired not only by the athletic achievements they witness, but by the stories of how money has been used to create opportunities and drive change. When they see their favorite player funding a school or their team supporting a disaster relief effort, it deepens their emotional connection. It tells them that sports are not only about winning and losing, but about serving something greater. That sense of purpose spreads, encouraging fans to think about how they too might use their own resources, however limited, to contribute to their communities. Money in sports, when directed with vision, inspires not just athletes but entire societies to act with greater intention. Even on the global scale, the purposeful use of money in sports has the power to promote peace and cooperation. Nations that may have political or cultural differences come together on the field, and the financial resources invested in creating these international events allow for dialogue and connection that might not otherwise exist. Sports diplomacy funded through purposeful spending opens doors that politics alone cannot. The unifying effect of sports becomes a soft but powerful force for harmony, showing humanity what is possible when competition is framed not as division but as mutual respect. Ultimately, the story of money in sports is never about the sheer size of numbers, but about the direction of energy. Money with no vision becomes waste, distraction, and decay. Money with clear vision and purpose becomes the fuel for excellence, innovation, inclusion, and unity. It elevates athletes to reach their full potential. It connects fans across the world. It builds opportunities for generations to come, and it strengthens the values that make sports one of the most powerful cultural forces on earth.